All right, guys, we are back for the Care Bear Fantasy Football Podcast. We had another successful week as week 2 has just finished up. Same as usual, we're going to run through the NFL games last week, our matchup games. Obviously, we got 6 winners, 6 losers as normal, a top player, a bottom player. Then, before we move on to next week, we will have a look at some quick injury news as well as some league trade news. And our league board, of course. Then after that, we will go ahead and look at next week's games and next week's matchups. So starting off, Thursday, the Eagles ran down the Vikings' throat, winning 34-28. That score is not indicative of how the game went. That game was atrocious. DeAndre Swift had 175 yards. 130 of them came before contact. That is disgusting. Kirk did all he could. I mean, he had 360 with 4 touchdowns. That's amazing. But fumbles from his running back, special teams, and everything else just cost them the game. Sunday morning, the Bills got a get-back game on the Raiders, winning 38-10. Josh Allen had a big bounce back. He only missed 6 passes, 31 for 37, very accurate. No picks today, or Sunday, while he had 3 touchdowns. And James Cook, the new RB1 on that team, had 120 on the ground. Like to see that for fantasy. The Bears, 17-27, they lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Fields threw 2 picks, had 2 fumbles, didn't look good, likes to hold the ball instead of throwing the ball, isn't running anymore. He said in a conference that the coaching is making him think too much. This guy's an idiot. Shouldn't be a quarterback. Meanwhile, the Baker to Mike Evans connection looks good. Rachaad White looks good. He had a touchdown. Mike Evans, he had 6 for 170 and a touchdown. And like I said, Baker, he just looks good. Bucks are 2-0. What are we talking about? Then the Packers had a choke job against the original chokers, Atlanta. Atlanta won 25-24. Arthur Smith loves running the ball. 45 rushing attempts coming from Algier, Bijan, and Desmond Ridder. He had 10 of them, the QB. Packers, I mean, Jordan Love, he looks good. He only threw 150, but it was efficient. He had 3 touchdowns. Jaden Reed, rookie, he looks good. He caught 2 of them. He only had like 4 catches, but 2 of them were touchdowns. But no Aaron Jones means no running game because A.J. Dillon sucks. They need Aaron Jones back, and A.J. Dillon needs to catch a bus out of Green Bay. I am sure the fans are upset about the last game. Next, the Ravens, they beat the Bengals 27-24. Both QBs, both of them got paychecks this offseason. Both of them have looked bad so far, but they both picked it up around the second half. Lamar did what he can. I mean, OBJ got hurt just like last year. His receivers are already going down. Mark Andrews missed week 1. OBJ down week 2. J.K. Dobbins out for the year. That's what happens. Ravens always look like they have a good roster, and then they just implode with injuries. Whatever. And then for the Bengals, Joe Burrow, he picked it up in the second half a little bit. Got T. Higgins going. But Jamar Chase does not look good so far. He is like receiver 50 in fantasy. And Burrow also left the game with a calf injury, meaning he is questionable for Monday night. Seahawks-Lions got an overtime thriller. 37-31, Seahawks won. I think Geno is back. 330, 2 touchdowns, both of them to Lockett. He looked great. Kenny Walker, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Not efficient, but he scored, so fantasy, that's great. For the Lions, Jared Goff, he threw his first interception in almost 400 pass attempts. That is crazy. Really didn't realize that he had gone so long without throwing one, but he did throw one. It was a pick 6, and a lot of fans are saying that that's the reason they lost. Oh, well, I mean, he did have 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, just like Geno, but that's why they lost. And then as for the backfield, starting running back, David Montgomery goes down with a thigh bruise. Team says day-to-day. He said weeks in the press conference after the game. Who knows? But I know Jahmyr Gibbs owners everywhere are thanking God because he is finally going to get the reps he should, me being one of those guys. The Colts beat the Texans 31-20 in a game between 2 rookie QBs. AR5, he had 2 early rushing touchdowns, I think, before the 7-minute mark in the first quarter. He looked like he was going to have a great day until he got rocked. Concussion, out for the game. Gardner Minshew stepped in. He won them the game. I mean, He game managed. Zach Moss looked good. Michael Pittman looked good. But on the other side, even though they lost, C.J. Stroud looks great for a rookie on a bad roster, a bad O-line, constantly a negative game script. He looked good. 380 yards, this week's leading passer, and 2 touchdowns with no picks. He quietly provided 3 fantasy-relevant receivers on the Texans. We're talking Robert Woods, Nico Collins, and Tank Dell. That's something to watch out for. Stroud, Rookie of the Year. Who knows? Chiefs, they beat the Jags 17-9. This was a slow, boring game. Jags could have won this game. They went 0 for 3 in the red zone. They had multiple touchdowns that were just one toe away from scoring. It sucks to suck. I mean, the whole team kind of did bad. Trevor Lawrence didn't do great. Calvin Ridley had 2 catches. Zay Jones went down early. Christian Kirk, big game. 11 catches, 100 yards. ETN, he left with cramps, I think. He's not hurt, but he's cramping, I guess. Can't handle the Florida sun. And then as for the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes does Patrick Mahomes. He threw 2 touchdowns, one of them to Kelsey, who's back after the Week 1 injury. Kelsey, on a snap count, got 9 targets. He is the best tight end in fantasy. Once he is back to full health, it is going to be massive. Then we got another OT game. The Titans beat the Chargers 27-24. Let's talk. Chargers, fire Brandon Staley. No team in NFL history in their first 2 games has scored over 50 points, had 0 turnovers, and still started 0-2 until now. The Chargers have a team full of all-pros. They have an all-pro QB. They have last year's fantasy RB1. They have a stud receiver. They have all-pro names all over the defense, and yet they lose games. No turnovers. They score points, but the defense just gives up more. It is insane. Brandon Staley needs to be fired. He was hired as a defensive head coach, and he cannot stop anything. He is an idiot. Anyways, Keenan Allen, he looked good. 8 catches, 110 yards, 2 touchdowns. As for the Titans, Tannehill game managed and gave Derrick Henry the ball, and that's how they win games. It is what it is. On the afternoon slate, the Giants, massive comeback against what is supposed to be the worst team in the league this year, Cardinals. They won 31-28. At one point, the Cardinals were up 20-0. The Cardinals defense looks good. Jonathan Gannon, maybe he's the truth. That guy knows how to coach up a defense, at least for a half. But finally, after 6 quarters, the Giants scored. As I said, they did end up winning 31-28, but Saquon Barkley did go down. Oh boy, just got some breaking news. Cam Akers has just been traded. I did not see that, as some notifications were coming in as that just happened. Can't find it. I'm sure I will get that at some point, but oh well. As I said, Cardinals, Josh Dobbs, he had a crazy run. Love seeing that. Josh Dobbs is a beast. And then, as I said, Saquon did sprain his ankle. He is going to miss Thursday night, and he might miss more weeks after that. Next, the Rams. They might be back. They lost 23-30 against the Niners, one of the best rosters in football. But Stafford looks good. Puka looks like Cup 2.0. Kyren Williams, touchdown goblin. He is now the sole running back on that roster, as Cam Akers did just get traded. I didn't see what team. Careful, though. Royce Freeman might take that starting spot. Anyways, as for the Niners, ground game, C-Mac, Debo, they carried the way. Brock Purdy, he did what he had to. They won the game, but he missed multiple open touchdown throws. This game definitely could have been a lot worse than 7 points. That's for sure. Is Purdy good? I've always been a Purdy hater. We'll see as time goes on, but he missed multiple wide open touchdown throws that game. Next, Jets, Cowboys. Cowboys won 30-10. Zach Wilson sucks. 3 picks. That Cowboys defense looks elite. Best in the league, most likely. After 2 weeks, they have a point differential of 60. That's insane. The offense, it kind of looks mediocre, but then again, they also haven't had to do anything besides just not turn the ball over, which is what they've done. They are out Kellen Moore, as Mike McCarthy is currently the play caller for that team. And then, as I said, the Jets, it is only a matter of time until they move on from Zach Wilson. Again, they did it twice last year. I don't see why they wouldn't this year. He's not good. He threw 3 picks. I think he's awful. He is awful. They need to sign someone. Carson Wentz is out there. Matt Ryan probably still wants a job. Maybe go beg Tom Brady. I don't know, but they need a new QB. Then, shootout game. Commanders beat the Broncos 35-33. This was a crazy game. The Broncos 20-0. Then Sam Howell brings it back, takes the lead. We're talking 35-27, going down. 0 seconds on the clock. We see a classic Russ Moonball touchdown. And they didn't convert the 2-point conversion. Broncos country. That is a bumpy ride. Yeah, have fun with that one. Brian Robinson looked great, though. Sunday night, Dolphins beat the Patriots 24-17 behind a dominant run game. That's right. Tyreek Hill, I mean, he had like 40, 50 yards. I'm not sure for sure. I didn't write it down. But Mostert, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns. Patriots lost another close game. Back-to-back weeks, they are just plays away from winning. Plays away from being 2-0. They might be the best winless team in football. But then again, the Bengals are 0-2 and the Chargers are 0-2. Monday night doubleheader started with Saints-Panthers. Saints won 20-17. This game sucked. Carr sucks. Bryce Young sucks. Olave had a cool catch down the sideline. Yeah, that game sucks. The NFC South kind of sucks, but the Saints are 2-0, so it is what it is. Then the Steelers and the Browns. This was a just AFC North classic, just defensive, sloppy-ass game. The Steelers defense came to play. They scored 2 touchdowns, had a pick 6 on the first play of the game. Then Deshaun Watson with the massage oil all over his hands gave up a fumble 6 to TJ Watt. He also gave up a second fumble on a 4th down try. So he had 3 turnovers. And so he's covered in massage oil still. He's still being handsy. He got 2 flags, grabbing face masks. He loves grabbing it whatever he can. He's got to figure that out because Nick Chubb is done. He's out for the year. We'll talk about that in a second. And then for the Steelers, I mean, preseason they looked good. The offense looked good, but they're chanting Fire Canada out there in Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett looks like he stinks. Najee, he looks hefty and slow, but they got George Pickens. He's cool, right? He got a big touchdown. Now we need to talk about Monday Night Curse. Last 4, I guess we'll say 5 Monday night games. Kyler Murray blew his knee up. He is still rehabbing right now a year later, or 8 months. Damar Hamlin died, so there's that. And then last week, A-Rod tore his Achilles. And this week, Nick Chubb, his knee was a 90-degree angle. This was disgusting. The same knee he fucked up in college is done again. He's out for the year, and honestly, I'm scared he will never be his former self if he comes back. I mean, they're talking about having 2 surgeries for him. And then also, from the other Monday night game that was very boring, star linebacker for the Panthers, Shaq Thompson, who is a big part of that stout defense they have, he broke his fibula. He's done for the year too. What is going on Monday nights? But in honor of all these injuries happening, we're going to take a quick shot. Just pour one up for the guys who, I mean, guys, it's week 2, week 1, A-Rod, they're done for the year. We're not going to see him for 16 weeks. We're not going to see him until next year. A-Rod's talking crazy about coming back for playoffs. If they make playoffs, right now they kind of suck, so we'll see about that. But, I mean, this one is for you guys. At Disaronno, it hits. Now, let's move on to our league matchups. Starting off, I beat Andy 140.8 to 133.4. This was a super high-scoring matchup, and unfortunately for Andy, for the second week in a row, highest points in a loss. Now, I want to talk not one-on-one to Andy, but just towards him directly. He is the 3rd highest scorer in the league. 3rd highest scorer. He has, I think, like 260 points. That is nuts. He's averaging 130. He's 0-2. He has 275 points against. That is just rough to see. You hate to see that in fantasy, but that's just the way it bounces. Next, Reggie beat this week's shit king, Devin, 149, a new highest score. We are going to keep track of those in the end of the year. We'll see who had the highest score. But week 2, Reggie, 149.7, highest score, to 85.9. So not only is that the new highest score, there's also the highest score differential in a game of 62 point. It was 0.7 to be exact, but we round the numbers here to avoid, the 100th place on the decimals. Reggie, if you don't recall, last week he said he's going to let his players do the talking on the league board, and man, they showed up. 150 points. That is scary. Meanwhile, Devin, he's dealing with injuries. Austin Eckler was out. A-Rod went down for him last week. He couldn't compete. He was the only team this week to not make 100 points. And Cam Akers traded to the Vikings. That is kind of weird. I thought Mattinson had that job locked up, but I guess after 2 very disappointing weeks, Cam Akers is there. That is going to definitely be a 1A, 1B backfield. Next up, that scared the shit out of me. Pops just came home. Andrew beat Jews 132.8 to 106.8, tight matchup, but some flops at receiver let Jews down, while Andrew had 4 20-point scores. He is currently number 1 in the league at 2-0 and the highest score. Like I said, 4 20-point scores, and not to mention the Cowboys defense with yet another big game. Bailey beat Paul 110.6 to 108.1. Super tight game. Came down to Jamal Williams getting just enough on Monday night before he left early with an injury. Bailey was sweating that one. Then Corey beat Ryan 134 to 117. Ryan had 3 guys come out for 65 while the rest of his team wet his bed. This guy needs some diapers. He is falling apart. He is 0-2 and the least score in the league. Someone help that guy. Meanwhile, Corey had his running backs, Jalen Hurts and Mostert, carry the team. And I said running backs because Jalen Hurts does not look good as a quarterback right now. He had 2 tush pushes, so free 12 points right there. He quietly had a top 3 performance this week. Good for him. Then lastly, Ant squeaked a win over Tommy, 125.4 to 123.5, and that is our tightest score of the year with a difference of 1.9. Ant got carried by his receivers, but he also got help from an injury as Tommy undoubtedly had this matchup locked up before Chubb got injured. Honestly, if Chubb finished that drive, that is a win for Tommy, as he most likely was scoring, as Tommy only lost by 2. What's going on? Oh, jeez. Want to join? It's recording. All right. Can you go? All right. We're leave that in. Tell the editor to leave that one in. This week's best lineup: Danny Dimes, QB1, 31.7 for the waivers. Brian Robinson, RB1, 28.9 for Paul's bench. Kyren Williams, RB2, 28 for my bench. Keenan Allen, receiver 1, 31.1 for Andy. Puka, receiver 2, 30.1 for Bailey's bench. Mike Evans at flex, 29.1 for Ant. TJ Hawk, tight end 1, 29.1 for myself. Brandon Aubrey, kicker, 16, waivers. And lastly, Steelers defense had 29 for Reggie. That is back-to-back weeks where there is a defense just putting up massive numbers. This would have been a combined score of 245. That is, unstoppable. But to be honest, 5 of those guys not rostered or on a bench. That is the fun part about fantasy. That is the part that makes you pull your hair out. You just don't know who's going to pop off. Who thought Kyren Williams and Brian Robinson were the top 2 running backs this week? Who thought Daniel Jones was the top QB this week? You never know. And then, kicker, shot in the dark. Defense, kind of a shot in the dark, but you're reading matchups. It is what it is. Now, let's take a look at the league board. We got some stuff going on this week. Little Andrew, Broncos country, let's ride. Devin, what the fuck happened? That is a accurate response to being the shit king. I don't blame you for that one. Next up, Tommy. He wanted this one to go after Ant, but Ant did not send in a message this week. Remember, if you guys want to be on the league board, you got to message me what you want your message on the league board to say. But he has two messages, one towards Ant and one just in general. For Ant, fuck you. Talk all your shit, you dumb motherfucker. My RB1's leg is getting amputated, you fucking yapper. Why don't you go suck a dick? Those are some strong words. Then, the best way to get a better understanding of the situation in the world is to look at what happened to our children. Nowadays, kids are being abused and raped, but they are being treated like criminals because of the abuse treaty they were born into. And that treaty is slavery with no boners. This man has a way with his words. I love it. Then Bailey. This is no longer relevant, as we will get into it, but he said, anyone want Puka? And then Jews, my team sucks, as he is 0-2 right now. And then Corey, Mostert is a dog. Mostert carried the team for him this week. He put up 25. Meanwhile, Bears blow dick. Their OC should find a Wendy's that's hiring. More or less, their defensive coordinator should do that because he resigned today as his house was raided. According to Charles Tillman, new FBI agent, former Bears corner. That was an interesting story to read about. And then myself, Ant, I question your intelligence. This one's a little personal. I mean, me and Ant were doing a little trade talking. You could call it trade talking. If you listened earlier to the Game Rewinds, I mentioned that Kyren Williams might get his job taken by Royce Freeman. Because when I offered him Kyren Williams, current RB2, he told me that it was a crowded backfield with Cam Akers, who's now on the Vikings, and Royce Freeman. Thanks for that. Editor, leave that one in. Royce Freeman, crowded backfield. He didn't touch the field on Sunday, but, you know, good on you. Whatever. Now let's get a quick injury report. Actually, you know what? Let's do a trade talk. We had a trade. First trade of the year. Bailey and Andrew got into a trade talk. That is 2-0 Andrew, the top of our league currently, and 1-1 Bailey. Bailey sent over James Conner, the current RB13, and Puka Nacua, the current receiver 2. In return, Bailey got a haul. We're talking Travis Etienne. He is the RB16 right now, but he played half a game last week. He got Amari Cooper, receiver 43 right now. But he has proved before he is elite. And receiver 24, Jacoby Myers, who did not play in week 2. So, you know, their ratings are not good, but they all have reasons as to why injuries, injuries, basically. Amari Cooper got hurt week 1. He only had 6. Also, can't forget, this is big time. Bailey got $20 in fab. That is big time. Right now, I mean, it looks great for Andrew. He's getting the receiver 2 in fantasy. The guy's averaging 15 targets a game. You can't argue that. Puka is a beast. And then James Conner, just a workhorse back in Arizona. Like I said, early signs. Looks good for Andrew. He's getting a stud. But we'll check back in on this maybe next week. Just, you know, a 1 week after trade look. And then we'll look at it week 5 and maybe 6 when Cooper Kupp returns to see how Puka is still being in that offense. Because that is a big question a lot of people had about Puka. Is it sustainable once the true receiver 1 returns? Honestly, this leaves Andrew with a starting lineup that is just solid. He did lose Etienne, his RB1, but he got James Conner, who, you know, they're somewhat equal. I mean, Etienne's going to lose work during the year to Tanks Bigsby, maybe. And James Conner, that backfield is his and his alone. But that leaves him with a solid starting lineup and basically no depth. Then an injury report. So Barkley's out for Thursday, and then everyone I'm about to list off is questionable. Josh Reynolds, Tank Dell, Anthony Richardson, Derrick Henry, DK, Dawson, Knox, Christian Watson, Breece Hall, Jalen Waddle, Odell, Joey B, Amari Cooper, Jacoby Myers, Austin Eckler, Amon-Ra, David Montgomery, Aaron Jones, Brandon Cooks, Justice Hill, Ayuk, Miles Sanders, and Pacheco. As of today, Wednesday, questionable. All these guys are on rosters, so if you heard a name, check it out. And then week 2, Thursday night, Giants at Niners, -10. Sunday, Bills -6.5 at the Commanders. Broncos at the Dolphins, -6. Chargers -1 at the Vikings. That's a pick 'em. Colts at the Ravens, -7.5. Falcons at the Lions, -3. Pats, -3 at the Jets. Saints at Packers, -2. Texans at the Jaguars, -9.5 for the Jags. Titans at the Browns, -3.5. Coming into the afternoon, Panthers at Seahawks, -6. Bears at Chiefs, -12.5. Bear down. Cowboys, -12 at the Cards. And then Sunday night, we got Steelers at Raiders, -2.5. And then Monday night, doubleheader. Again, not a fan, but it is what it is. Eagles, -4.5 at the Bucks. And then Rams at the Bengals, -2.5. So that's all the games for the NFL. Let's look ahead to what we got going on for us in the league. We got a Week 3 shit bowl. 2 0-2 teams, Jews versus Andy. Both of them winless. And then we got Tommy versus Corey, both of them 1-1. Bailey versus Reggie, both of them 1-1. Devin versus Paul, both of them 1-1. Then we got 2-0 Ant going up against Ryan, 0-2. He's probably going to move on to 3-0. Just looking at it, Ryan. Again, those diapers, need them. You're pissing yourself. Then we got the game of the week. 2 2-0 teams. Myself at Andrew. Someone is coming out undefeated. Someone is getting their first loss of the year. So as I said, 3 teams left undefeated. 3 teams winless. We'll see what changes this upcoming week. But that is all I got for the Week 2 podcast. Moving into Week 3. Excited for football. Excited for fantasy. That is all I got, guys. See you next week.